this video, you will learn how to do the loop stitch. The loop stitch is a stitch that I used when I designed the Mackinac knitted hat. It creates a row of loops, and the reason why I used it with that hat was because it looked almost like fur. It looked like something that was going to be super warm, super soft, something that you definitely wanted on your head. Alright, to do the loop stitch, you're going to use your working yarn and whatever needles that match that yarn, the needle gauge that matches that yarn. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cast on 10 stitches here. Okay, and I'm using the long tail cast on when I did those cast on. You want to cast on kind of loosely because the stitch does have a tendency to tighten up as you're working it. Okay. Alright, so the loop stitch alternates between two rows. The first row is going to be looped, and the second row you can either knit it or purl it. If you want a really flat piece of fabric, go ahead and purl it. This is a pretty chunky stitch though, so if you knit it, it's not going to make a huge difference. I think it might add to the chunkiness of it. So I usually knit it because it just goes faster that way. Alright, so what you're going to do is insert your needle as if you're knitting into that first stitch, and keep these stitches loose as you're doing this because that'll really help you. Like I said, this stitch has a tendency to tighten up. Okay, so I've knit that first stitch, but I haven't dropped the stitch off of my left hand needle as you normally would when you knit. Instead, what I'm going to do is take the yarn, pull it through the two needles, loop it around my thumb, work it back through the needles. Now I'm going to move the stitch that I didn't drop onto my right hand needle, and I'm going to lock this loop by pulling the second stitch over the first, and that's our first loop. So we're going to go ahead and do that with the next stitch. Okay, so we've knit into it, but I haven't dropped the stitch off of my left hand needle. I'm going to create a loop through the center of my work around my thumb, pull that stitch that I didn't drop onto my right hand needle, and lock it by pulling the second stitch over the first stitch. Okay, knit, loop, and lock it. Okay, knit, loop, and lock it. Usually when I'm doing this stitch, I find that it's a little bit easier if I end up anchoring this needle into my stomach. That way it just helps it from not wiggling around like it is, and it actually, I find that it makes the stitch go a lot faster. Not always super comfortable, but if you're looking for speed, that is the way to go. Also, if you have a pattern and you're substituting this stitch into the pattern, and the pattern calls for increasing or decreasing, when doing this stitch, I suggest doing that increasing and decreasing on the wrong side of your fabric, or the side that's not the loop stitch. In the Mackinac knitted hat, that's how I have it. So that all the increasing and decreasing is done on the wrong side of the work. That makes it a lot easier. Okay, and we're almost done. Okay, and if there's one thing that you take away from this loop stitch video, I hope it's that you keep your stitches loose. Otherwise, this might turn into an exercise in frustration for you. Okay, So there we have our first row of loop stitches. I'm going to go ahead and turn my work. Now, like I said, if you want a flat piece of fabric along the back, you can purl these. I'm just going to go ahead and knit them because it's a lot faster. Okay, so just going to knit straight down this row. Oops. This is sticky yarn. Okay. So then once you work all the way down the wrong side of your fabric, you're going to go ahead and loop the next row as well. Okay, and I'll just do the first couple so you can see what it looks like to have 2 rows of loops. Okay, and you can control the size of your loop by how loosely or tightly you loop it around your thumb. And with a chunky fiber, something like a bulky alpaca or really a bulky anything, this is going to make this look really, really chunky. Okay, so that's 2 rows of the loop stitch. It almost looks like a shag carpet, but in the Mackinaw knitted hat, it will make it look like fur. Go ahead and check out that Mackinaw knitted hat if you get a chance online. If you just go to worldknits.com, click on patterns, you'll be able to find that pattern. I hope you found this knitting video helpful, and happy knitting. This is Alex from World Knit and Handspun.